Language arts. What does GrapeSEED mean when it says language arts? Composition, literature, reading, and spelling are all great skills that help develop students' written and spoken language skills. However, there is an important issue that needs to be addressed when students are learning these skills in a language that is not their first language. There are some fundamental, foundational skills that they require before these things can be taught. Consider this. From when the child is born through to when the child starts even a basic formal education where the skills of reading, spelling, composition, and literature are taught, there is a large amount of time in the first language environment where the child is developing comprehension, listening skills, speaking skills, and a lot of exposure to print in the first language. Because it is important for non-English speakers to have some command of the language before working on the skills of reading, spelling, composition, and literature, GrapeSEED begins by spending a lot of classroom time in the beginning units to helping students develop listening and speaking skills. As these skills develop, the curriculum gives more time to working on the students' language arts skills and by developing reading readiness and learning to read skills. This provides a great foundation for the other skills to be built upon. GrapeSEED has streamlined the reading readiness and learning to read process by not teaching skills that are already taught in the child's first language, and by being very efficient in the words that are taught and the way that we teach them. GrapeSEED begins the study of language arts by teaching simple, single-letter phonograms and their phonemes. Phonograms are the letters in written or printed form, and the phonemes are the sound or sounds that the letter makes. We then continue to decoding, which is also known as segmenting. This is where the students begin to apply their knowledge of phonics to decode or segment the words that they see and hear. The skills of decoding are strongly connected to the skills of word assembly, which is also known as blending. This is where the students will take the decoded letters and blend them into a word that they know, which build into reading fundamentals. Connected to the skills above, the students will start with the basic skills of writing single letters and learning their stroke order, and move through to learning writing skills such as dictation, all the way through to creative writing fundamentals. In GrapeSEED, we teach using phonics. Phonics is a method of teaching reading by associating letters and letter combinations with the sounds they make, also known as phonemes. We help students understand that some phonograms, letters, represent a sound, and in some cases more than one sound. For example, we teach that the letter A has 4 sounds: A in the word apple, A in the word snake, A in water, and in around. Similarly, the letters A, AI, AY, and EIGH are 4 different phonograms, some of them containing more than one letter, but they all represent the same sound, A. Starting in Unit 4, teachers will use a whiteboard to assemble words that contain single-letter phonograms. This will continue to Unit 7, and from Unit 8, this activity will be done in the students' writers. Because we want all learning to be done with comprehension, we make sure that the students only decode words that are decodable, and that they have heard in context and understand. For high-frequency words that are not decodable, we spell them. Decoding, or segmenting, is the opposite of assembly, and is often done before the students begin word assembly. It is the process of segmenting a word into individual phonemes when given a word orally or when seeing it in a written form. In this example, the students are seeing the letters C, A, and T, and either verbally or mentally separate the letters and connect them to the sounds they represent. In this case, K, A, T. Assembly, also known as blending, is done when the students either hear or see the phonograms and correctly put them together to form a word. For example, the teacher asks the students, "What is this word?" K-A-T. The students go through their memory and either verbally or mentally slowly say the sounds and connect them together. Cat, cat, until they identify the word that they know, cat. When it comes to reading, we want students to be able to see text and understand what is being said. One of the first steps in this process is shared reading. Shared reading is done with poems and big books. When we compare these two tools with other tools that focus on verbal skills, we can see that the text is much larger. The teacher displays the poem or big book to the class. The teacher will read aloud and track the text while the students read along with the teacher. The teacher is able to use shared reading to help the students gain an awareness of phoneme-phonogram relationships and how they work within words. This activity helps prepare the students to read on their own later by enabling them to recognize phonograms and to produce the sounds that they make. These shared reading tools are also great for helping teach concepts of print. For example, text is read from left to right and from top to bottom. There are spaces between words. All sentences begin with a capital letter. And all sentences end with a punctuation mark. Books have a front and back cover. Printed text represents spoken language. There is a difference between individual letters and printed words. There is a difference between capital and lowercase letters. And finally, in some cases, words rhyme. The reading objectives from Units 1 to 10 focus on building reading awareness. The shared reading skills we talked about before will begin in Unit 1. From Units 1 to 7, the shared reading poems are connected to the single letter phonograms. By the end of Unit 7, the students will have learnt all the sounds we teach that are connected to the 26 letters of the alphabet. This is expanded upon in the writers from Units 3 to 7. And the final component of reading awareness is word assembly that is done with the teacher on the whiteboard. Reading readiness overlaps reading awareness and starts in Unit 8 and goes through to Unit 15. The shared reading components of the big books and the poems continue from Units 8 to 20, and the teachers will continue to work on things such as phonemic and phonological awareness and concepts of print. Starting in Unit 9, students will be introduced to multi-letter phonograms, and by the end of Unit 15 will have learnt all of GrapeSEED's 40 multi-letter phonograms. From Units 11 to 15, the students will start by using basic readers. From Units 16 to 20, they will work with intermediate readers, and finally, from 21 to 40, the students will be using adventure readers. The word assembly skills that were done with the teacher on the whiteboard during the reading awareness stage will shift to being done in the writers. The students will be introduced to this in Unit 7, but will be done more comprehensively from Unit 8 onwards. Now, let's look at the final language arts component of writing. Young children whose motor skills are not yet developed to the point where they are able to write with a pencil are able to learn to air write the 26 letters of the alphabet. When doing the air writing, the teacher will show the students the front of the phonogram card, and the teacher will use the back of the card as a reference. The back of the card has the stroke order written in a mirror image. Because the students are copying the movement of the teacher's hands for the correct stroke order, the letter will be written in the correct way for the student's perspective. The teacher and the students will hold up 1, 2, 3, or 4 fingers, depending on how many sounds that phonogram makes. As mentioned previously, the writers will start in Unit 3, now that the students' motor skills have developed to the point where they're able to use a pencil correctly. As the students' writing skills develop, they will also learn the skills of dictation, where the teacher will say the sentence and the students will have the ability to write that sentence down. The final level of writing skills we will cover will be creative writing fundamentals. We say fundamentals because we do not go into areas such as writing essays, writing poems, and letters, as most of these skills will be covered in the child's native language. We do things such as using sentence starters to help prompt the creative writing process. That is what GrapeSEED means when it talks about language arts.